Hey everyone, thank you guys for joining, and I see people are trickling in right now to the webinar, so thank you so much for joining us on stage here. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Yann. Here I'm in charge of all the video productions here, and I get the opportunity to hang out with my good friend Marc-André.
Hi, hello everyone.
Thanks for joining us. Today is going to be a really fun day. I say that about all the webinars, but I think especially today, we're going to be covering a lot of really cool stuff. Wayk is something that is has been in production for a long time. He's going to talk about it and a little bit of the dreams, where it came from, where it's going, and what it can do to help you. Oh yeah, and our little mascot is gonna be in full. We're gonna share all about Wakey today. But anyway, before we get started, I just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping things. I wanted to make sure that obviously this is an online webinar, so we are going to be recording it, and we will publish it. So if there's any issues whatsoever, you'll be able to watch it for free on our YouTube channel in just a few days or so. Other than that, because it's an online streamed webinar, sometimes we've had issues where people, depending on the browser they're using or their connection, where they'll have the latency, the video and the audio won't be synced up. So all you have to do is refresh your browser and it should sync right back up. But like I said, we're recording the whole thing. So if you miss a part, or maybe you're on in the eastern side of the world and it's a little bit late for you guys, you can come back and watch it later. So don't worry about that. Also, we have some technical support sessions going on. So if you have any questions about any of our products, we have wonderful team members that are offering their support over in the tech support area in the sessions. And if you want any discount codes or you want to find out about our products, go to the Expo tab as well. And then we're also later on, we're going to be giving away our Sysadminitor book. Right there, our comic strip, so you can enter to win a chance to that. And I think we wanted to do something else, right?
Yes.
What do we want to do, Marc?
We're gonna give away 2 bundles of little Wakeys so you can share them with other people.
Okay, yeah. So we're gonna Jenny's gonna be, she gets the wonderful the joy of sharing these things with you guys and mailing it off to you. But we're gonna bundle, I think we said 5?
Yeah.
5 little Wakeys in a little bag or little box, and we'll send it to you. That way you can use it, you can share it with your family and friends, put it around your office, and you can do some advertising and marketing for us. Hint, hint. No, but anyway, it's this little Wakey. Everybody loves them. The only thing is we don't have the big ones. I don't know if they're out of production. They stopped producing. They don't have, so all we have is the little babies, but that's great. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, and we'll do you just go to the Expo and you go to the enter for the contests, and then I'll get your email, and later on we'll draw 3 winners at the end of our little session together. After this session, Marc-André will join Frank or Francois, and they'll be talking about any specific questions. If there's anything in the demo that you're curious about, or have more detailed questions or technical things, let's say about Wayk and how it's set up, the master will be here and be able to answer all your questions during that time. I'll probably answer maybe a few questions during the Q&A or during our talk, but you will probably keep those till the end. It'll be a little bit more directed because he's really the genius on all those topics, okay? So thank you for joining us for another webinar here at Devolutions. We're so glad that you just chose to join and be part of this event today. Today is all about Wayk Bastion and the product line, right? Yeah. So let's talk about, we know who Marc-André is and you know who I am, but let's talk about the little Wakey. I know this is a question people ask us all the time. Why do we have this little blue owl? And so give us a story behind that. I have no idea. So I want first time.
We talked about it yesterday and he doesn't know the answer.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a surprise. It's like not a fake surprise.
Exactly. It's not fake. So yeah.
Basically, before working for Devolutions, I had my own company called Wayk Coding Consulting, where I did a lot of development work with the FreeRTP open source project. And basically, we came up with the idea of using a little owl. Well, I should say my wife came up with the idea of using a little owl because the owl is awake at night. So this is where like the Wayk branding comes from. It's a little owl from Wayk Coding. And when I came to work at Devolutions, we basically just transferred the branding and everything. And now it's a completely different product from the original one. But we couldn't just like abandon this little Wakey here.
I love it. Yeah. It's become like a mascot. Like every time we go to a show somewhere, it's been years since we've done that, but like we went to RSA and we went to Ignite in Orlando, and everybody's like, I want like 5 of those little owls for my kids. I'm like, okay, well, all right, calm down. We can only give a few prizes away. But today, you have a chance to win 5 at the end. So, all right, well, now that we've introduced ourselves, we also want you to give us a little bit about the history, okay? We're going to talk about Wayk, the product. We're going to talk about the past, the present, the future, because I know you all want to see the product. But let's give us a little story about what it was, because we have shifted our focus a little bit. So tell us a little bit about that, Marc-André.
Yes. So I briefly mentioned that in my previous company, I was working on doing open source work with the FreeRDP project. So I have a lot of background with Microsoft RDP. So a lot of people, when they come and see Wayk today, they ask like, why did we make this product in the first place? And the original goal behind Wayk was not necessarily to make another RDP or make another protocol. It was really to have something which is our own that we could adapt for the customer needs. So in the time it was still called Wayk Now, the target was really to have a tool that looks like TeamViewer, which is a handy tool which you can have to access another computer at any time without installing anything. But that is the old Wayk product. The new Wayk product, the one which we rebranded to Wayk Bastion, is actually a product meant for MSPs to help them manage a lot of machines. And that is what I'm going to talk about today, and how you can use Wayk Bastion with a product like Remote Desktop Manager that nobody knows about, I guess. And why would we talk about Remote Desktop Manager?
Yeah, so exactly.
We kind of shifted back to Remote Desktop Manager, the integration, and we have our own protocol. We also support other protocols, so I'm really eager to talk to you about that. And the goal now is really to provide a uniform feature set for all platforms and to go beyond the limitations of each of the different protocols. So we can go beyond RDP. You can also go beyond Apple Remote Desktop. Oh. Because we also have an implementation of Apple Remote Desktop. Because we control the protocol, we can make anything in it. And so you want feature X? We can make feature X. We don't have to wait for Microsoft or Apple to do feature X in their own protocols.
Absolutely. That's cool. Before you keep going, Jenny posted a poll because we're curious about this, and we'll look at the results in a minute here. But in the stage tab on the right-hand side of the page there, she put a question down that says, are you interested in the Wayk Bastion Remote Desktop Manager integration? And there's a little poll going on there. So you could just say yes or no. That gives us a little clue on how many, I guess, RDM users there are out there, and kind of where we'll go with the direction, because we're assuming many of you use Remote Desktop Manager, but you may not know what that is. So he'll spotlight a little bit of the features there as well. All right, so let's keep going. So tell us a little bit more about, was it Wayk Remote Desktop we wanted to start covering?
Yes. So as I just explained, we kind of shifted back and focused on the RDM integration and for MSPs. So if I can describe what Wayk Bastion does in as few words as possible, it's a self-hosted remote access management solution that works with an RDM. So if you have machines that you need to connect to, you can actually use Wayk Bastion and combine that with RDM, and then you can manage hundreds and even thousands of different machines, regardless of where they are on separate networks. So I'm just going to go over a few of the different components so you know what these words mean for the rest of the presentation. Sure. So when I talk about Wayk Bastion, it's a centralized server. So you install it once. It is similar to Devolutions server in a way. So you self-host a centralized server. Devolutions server is one. Wayk Bastion is also a centralized server in the same sense. We have the Wayk agent program. And as the name says, it is an agent. So you need to install a Wayk agent on all machines which you want to manage through Wayk Bastion. You have the Wayk client, and the Wayk client can mean multiple things. It's basically just the client you need to connect to machines managed by Wayk Bastion. It can be the one which is inside RDM, the embedded mode. We also have a standalone client, and we also have a pure web client. So this interests a few of our customers. And one other component which is important is the Devolutions gateway. And what the Devolutions gateway does, it works side by side with Wayk Bastion. It is used to make the peer-to-peer connections happen. So whenever you connect to a machine, Wayk Bastion authorizes the connection, But Devolutions Gateway is the one that actually relays the traffic to the target Wayk agent. And to finish, there are 3 protocols supported in Wayk. We have Wayk Remote Desktop, which is our protocol. We have Wayk RDP. It's basically the same thing as the regular RDP, but leverages everything inside Wayk Bastion to connect to the machine. So any machine which you have, which you manage with Wayk Bastion, you can connect using RDP. And last but not least, Wayk PowerShell.
Yes.
Again,
Very cool.
you can connect to all machines, and not just Windows machines, but Windows, macOS, and Linux machines using PowerShell 7
That's
to
awesome.
all machines that are managed by Wayk Bastion. So we go over those step by step, and do not hesitate to ask any questions. François is in the chat, so he can answer. And at the end, I will probably pick up a few questions.
Sure. Sounds great.
Yeah. In order to better explain the product, one thing which is important is to put ourselves in the skin of our target audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've built this reference scenario to that we can use when we explain how these different features work. So today, our fictional MSP is called IT Help Ninja.
IT Help Ninja. Perfect. Exactly. Okay. So that's awesome. Yeah.
So basically what IT Help Ninja does is a regular MSP, and through word of mouth, they became quite popular. And now they have a problem. They've got over 100 customers to support. And for each of these customers, they've used a combinations of VPNs and remote desktop gateways, or the RD gateway, to remotely connect to 100 separate customer sites. This is great, but it's a lot of management, especially when there's a 0 day in the VPN appliance, and then they spend the entire day just patching 100 separate VPN appliances. So what I'm going to show to you today is how you can replace a VPN or remote desktop gateway by Wayk Bastion. So you only have to manage one Wayk Bastion for all of these instead of 100 separate VPNs or gateways.
That's cool.
Sounds good enough?
Yes.
We'll look into it right away.
Fantastic.
Maybe you can start sharing my screen.
All right. I'm going to share your screen there.
I spoke about IT Help Ninja. I pushed it a little bit further. I have an entire lab made for IT Help Ninja. If you can look at my screen here, have a full Windows domain environment with multiple virtual machines running Windows Server. Everybody that attends today's session, they will receive an invite to a full environment identical to the one I'm showing you right now.
Oh, man.
300 lab VMs ready for you to use for a couple of hours, so you can just go and try it out for yourself without having to spend hours deploying it just to see what it looks like.
That's cool.
It also comes pre-configured with RDM, of course, with all connection entries and all the passwords you will need for this test environment. So if I just go over what the different virtual machines are, you have a domain controller, you have a certificate authority, you also have a VM which is meant for a Devolution server, but it's not in there. In the next presentation, it will be there.
Yep.
You have a gateway machine for Devolution's gateway and also remote desktop gateway, and IT Help Wayk, which is the virtual machine hosting Wayk Bastion. So if I start with just the Wayk connection, here is the Wayk Bastion web interface.
Yeah.
You can see I'm logged. Well, I will use the other one. I will use my technician account. You can see it here. I can connect to this machine. I have the mic in my face. That doesn't really help. This is the web client.
This is amazing, though, too, because I was telling Marc-André, I have a technical background, but I don't work necessarily in IT stuff every day like Marc-André does. I was able to set up my own Wayk Bastion and use it, and like with his help, and it was very simple. Like it was very, very cool. So I hope you guys like this type of presentation. And once again, we're recording this, so if you're like, oh, the screen's too small or it's blurry or whatever, you'll be able to see everything he's doing later as well in the recording.
So this is the Wayk Remote Desktop web client. So I'm literally connected from the browser.
Cool.
And this browser talks to the native Wayk agent, which is installed on this machine here. Now, if I close this connection and I try it again, I can also do it using the desktop client, which should launch right away. And it doesn't. had pre-recorded videos, and I didn't intend to use them.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, well. But like you said earlier, this is what's cool is we're gonna I think in the chat at the end we're gonna be sending an email to all of you users where you can actually get your hands on and use this a demo of this. For how long is the time limit for that?
You have 10 hours.
Okay.
But if you need an extension, you just go in there, and it's 10 hours of usage time.
Okay,
so
cool.
Basically, you can decide to shut it down and then come back later, and then you have like a quota of 10 hours. If you need an extension on those 10 hours, there's no issue. So here's the desktop client. Normally, it can be launched from the web browser, but
sure,
just had a little issue there.
Cool.
You can see there are a couple of different features there. You can send, control, delete, type global contents, file transfer. You can go full screen.
Oh,
this
nice.
is the standalone client, which we have been working on rewriting.
Okay.
So it uses exactly the same core for Remote Desktop Manager.
Oh, wow.
So if I make the same connection here, let me make one. Oh, this is not the right connection at all. Sorry.
Now, to me, also, if some of you were using Wayk now back in the day, like we were using it and stuff, it's very similar. It's very familiar already to us using it. So very cool. So now you're launching a Wayk, the Wayk client using RDM?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
RDM.
Nice.
Some of you may notice that it took a while. We're going to improve that. I can provide an explanation. When you make the regular Wayk client connection, it actually tries all possible network routes. So this is why it took a bit longer. We're going to add a mode to just skip most of these and maybe go straight to just the proxy. So it will take just a second instead of a few seconds you just saw there.
Yeah, cool.
So these are the three Wayk clients, basically. So I just showed the web client, the standalone one, and the one which is inside RDM. Now, if I spend a bit more time in the Wayk Bastion interface, what you'll see here is I can look at the different levels and see the machines which are registered. You can see these machines are green. That's because the agent is online. Yeah. I can see some details about the agent on the right side. I also have a listing of sessions. So I see here the session I just made with my user technician, which is logged in RDM, how long it just took it was a session of 46 seconds, so I can see it. And I can see from what machine to what target machine and using what protocol exactly. So this is meant for you to keep track of what's happening in those remote sessions. You want to give remote access. Do you want to give it like with a free pass, or do you want to know what's happening and who's connecting to what?
Yeah.
So this product is exactly meant for that.
Yeah.
So yes, give remote access, but keep control over remote access.
Sure. It's almost the idea that, I mean, we're trying to implement zero trust as well. That's a big deal nowadays, you know?
Exactly. When you open a VPN and you allow port 3389, the one which is used for RDP, you don't really keep track of every single session that happens with a target system. Here, you cannot connect to the target machine unless you politely ask Wayk Bastion with your authenticated user for every single session they do. So how can you not see things in this case? You really have to see everything. You can see what's happening. You can also disconnect sessions as they happen. So you can give some users a right to terminate sessions. It's like, why are you connected on this machine? You shouldn't be there. Click, click, gone.
Yeah.
Session is gone.
Gives you great control and management for that. That's awesome. Sure.
There is a small video I want to show because it takes a lot more steps.
Sure. Yeah, I asked Marc-André to pre-record some videos as well because some of the things we're doing are not more intensive in process. So he's going to show some videos right now, and he'll just narrate over them.
Okay, let me start again. So here I want to show multi-factor authentication for the Wayk admin user. So what we recommend is that you make a highly privileged user and don't log in unless you really need to. But of course, if you only have a password, how does that really work? What you see in the video here is that we've enabled MFA on the Wayk admin account, and you can use it with anything that accepts the QR code for two-factor authentication. So in this case, I created an entry in RDM because we do support that type of entry where you have a time a code that changes every minute. So I'm just repeating the same thing here. You can enable it for all of your users. In fact, it's not a bad thing at all. And then once you're logged in, well, you can remain logged in, but you still need to have that code there. So that's an extra on top of the regular authentication.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
And since we're talking about the authentication, maybe I can talk a little bit more about the Active Directory integration. You can create your own users in Wayk Bastion. They would just be like custom users inside Wayk Bastion.
Okay.
But what if you have a lot of users in Active Directory? Well, good news.
Classic.
We support that.
Nice. That's awesome. And that's a big, I'm glad you say that, because that's always a big point. People are like, I already have all these users in Active Directory.
Yes.
I need to integrate this. I don't want to do this all over again, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's cool.
So here in this little video, I show the boring part of how do you just synchronize with Active Directory. You just need to create a user that is dedicated to synchronizing user information with Active Directory. We support LDAP-S, the secure version, if you have issues setting up LDAP-S. Because it's going to be a requirement eventually, we have some good blog posts about that. So describe how you can use Let's Encrypt as a CA for your own domain controller for LDAP-S.
Yeah,
so that's pretty good. And it goes a bit beyond that, because once you have these users synchronized from Active Directory, not only you have these users inside the user directory, but you can also use them for your technician users. So you can log in to Wayk Bastion using the same credentials that you have with Active Directory. And if you enable MFA, you've just successfully added MFA on top of your Active Directory users.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I think I just covered enough of the Wayk Bastion interface.
Okay.
Maybe what we can move on is, how do you deploy this Wayk agent I spoke?
Sure, yeah, that's a great idea.
So let me connect to a machine I have here. It's on the DC. We have more than one way to deploy the agent. So it's a program which you can obviously just launch, and then you have a command line interface. We offer a PowerShell module that you can install from PS Gallery, and then you can call install Wayk agent, and you can pass it some parameters for automatic registration with Wayk Bastion.
Okay.
Because one of the things is, you don't want to have anybody coming and registering their own machines to your Wayk Bastion.
Yeah.
So the way it works is, you go in machine registration and you create a new token. So you can say this token is good for 30 days, and the machines that use this token go directly into this group. So the token I have here is the one I just passed as command line parameter to the PowerShell module.
Okay.
The MSI installer for Wayk Agent also supports custom MSI options.
Nice.
And you can pass this token for registration into it.
Very cool.
And the last but not least, a method of installation, you can generate a custom executable that comes with the branding for your Wayk Agent. So it can be rebranded.
So like a white label kind of thing?
Exactly.
Nice.
So let me show it here.
This is cool. Oh!
You see here,
I see
IT Ninja, it's green, and Wayke has, it looks like a ninja.
That's awesome.
You can change this, and you can include this in your custom executable. And if you don't include it in your custom executable, it doesn't really matter, because it will be distributed automatically to all the agents that are connected to this Wayk Bastion.
That's super
time
cool.
they start it, it will be green, it says. It will say IT Ninja. We don't yet have the ability to generate the custom executable from the web interface, so you have to use a PowerShell module for now, but we're working on that. So eventually you'll be able to have a live editor where you say generate custom executable and deploy that executable to your customer. So you can just launch it and have the installation and registration done entirely for them. And while we're talking about the white label is something which is interesting. It's why would you want to rebrand the agent? You know why? Because it builds trust.
Sure.
As an MSP, you've worked really hard to build your brand, and people recognize you by your brand. And because you are an MSP, you may support people who are not necessarily tech savvy. So they don't really know much about computers because, you're there to help them with their computers. But if they see the brand they associated with you, they know what this is. Yeah. It may look cute, like little wiki will, the wiki,
sure,
but they don't know who wiki is really, but they know who you are, and that's what matters, which is why we have a white label feature in Wayk Bastion.
That's really good point, and that's why we talk about MSPs a lot, and that's kind of the focus. But I mean, you could see that this could be used for anybody that has to manage lots of
Yes.
not necessarily connections, but remote access. Yeah.
I speak of MSPs. It only means that we have the features for MSPs that we're targeting MSPs, but Wayk Bastion is definitely very usable for SMBs or for smaller use cases.
Sure.
So do not feel threatened by like
Yeah.
Wayk Bastion for MSPs at all. It just means we have features for MSPs.
Absolutely.
We do not forget about the other people.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Machine registration. If there is an interesting question in the chat, we can definitely take a pause there and answer it. Otherwise, I will move on to talk about MSP features.
Okay, good.
Here, I didn't really explain the structure we have for the different machines. You probably have noticed that there are multiple levels. So we have subscription, we have tenant level, then we have unit level, and resource group or machine level.
Okay.
If you've used Azure before, it may look slightly similar. That's because we literally just took the exact same RBAC system as Azure and added 2 levels on top of it. So the reason why the word subscription is still there, because it's like an Azure subscription. But when we adapted the product for MSPs, we kind of felt that 3 levels were not enough. So we had to add a few more. So here I have one tenant, but our product is fully multi-tenant. You can actually add another tenant. So you have to click on subscription. And I don't really have a good name, so I'm going to go for a Banana Phone because that's what I have in my head right now.
Banana Phone, I love it.
So you have a company called Banana Phone. And,
that's perfect.
and then you can create a separate registration token for this tenant. And then you can send a separate custom executable to Banana Phone, which you support.
Yeah, and then they can install it as they...
And then you can use these separate groups to manage the access rights. So you could give like a technician access just to Banana Phone, or you could give it to another company name. And next time I will take mental note to come up with better names before the presentation. But you get the idea. So if you have 100 separate customers, you can create 100 separate tenants, and then you can manage correctly the rights for each of these machines in managed in separate tenants within the same Wayk Bastion. So one thing which is very important that I've been told many times is if I want to support 100 separate customers, I don't want to deploy 100 separate Wayk Bastions. I want a single Wayk Bastion to rule them all. No,
yes.
Lord of the Rings, but yeah, you get it.
That's
you
funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay. So maybe let's go back to where the fun stuff is, and that means Remote Desktop Manager.
Sure.
Let's go in there. I just showed earlier a connection using the Wayk client.
Okay.
But let me explain how you can currently use Wayk Bastion within your Remote Desktop Manager data source.
Okay.
So if you're already using Devolutions server, and even if you don't, no matter what the data source type you have, the first thing you want to do is you want to create a Wayk Bastion entry.
Okay.
And in this Wayk Bastion entry, what you have is you just put the URL for your Wayk Bastion.
Okay.
And then you can, I will do the fun thing of re-authenticating live.
Yes.
You can log in with your user.
Perfect.
In this case, I would just. So what you see here is we've just popped the browser, and this is a full OAuth client. So you may be familiar with these types of logins because they're becoming more popular. But when you go with when you log into Azure or anywhere else, oftentimes you have another browser window that pops up, and that's the authentication that's going on here.
Okay.
So here you can see that I've come back with my technician user.
Perfect.
Technician is logged in. Yay. So I'm logged into Wayk Bastion. The way I can then create entries, and I can select my Wayk Bastion.
Oh, cool. So it's tapping into that previous entry.
So you associate it with it. So I have a Wayk Remote Desktop entry. I want to associate it with this Wayk Bastion entry. So this is how you do it for the Wayk client sessions. Now let's go and see how it's done for an RDP session, because that's quite interesting. You go in VPN SSH gateway. You select as a type Wayk Bastion. It's at the bottom. You select always connect. And then in settings, you can also select Wayk Bastion. So you select Wayk Bastion like this. That's the only difference from a regular RDP session. Let's go and look how it's done for the exact same thing on the network. It is the same entry. The only difference is it's not associated with anything. So for the first type of entry, like this one, I've named it local network here. This is what you would normally have when you connect with a VPN. So you open a VPN first, so you can actually have a direct access with TCP 239 for RDP.
Yeah.
And then you double click and you connect. I'm connected because I'm connected on the local network.
Oh, neat. Yeah.
Now, if I do the same with the RD gateway, what's the difference? For those that are not familiar with the remote desktop gateway, it's the official response from Microsoft on how do you give external access to internal RDP systems without doing port forwarding.
Yeah.
And it directly exposing RDP to the internet. If you currently do, please don't. We'll give you products for that for free if possible. Just don't do that. The internet is being scanned like crazy for RDP access. You certainly do not want to expose directly your RDP to the internet.
Yes.
So you can see here what for the RD gateway, it looks like Wayk Bastion. In fact, you associate it with a gateway, and then here's my gateway entry. So in the lab, you have a full remote desktop gateway that works. So let's connect with it. And the way it works is it connects to the gateway, and then it asks the gateway to redirect traffic to the target system. So this works without a VPN, but it only works for RDP, which is why you see here in this group of connections, I don't have RDP connections, while on the local network, I still have my PowerShell sessions, because PowerShell works on the local network, but you cannot use PowerShell through the remote desktop gateway.
Yep.
Some people may ask, why do you want to do that? Well, why do you open the VPN to do it in the first place? Sometimes you need it. So
yeah.
That's good. Let's move to the last session, which I showed earlier, Wayk Bastion with Wayk RDP. Again, it's not very easy to see the difference, but what I did here is I asked permission to Wayk Bastion to connect to this target system using RDP. Wayk Bastion authorized the connection. It also allowed me to open a reverse connection using Devolutions gateway to the target system, all without having to open a VPN. I know these are all words and may make no sense because all three connection types, well, they connect, right?
Yeah.
But the requirements to connect are entirely different. And if I go here in my sessions, what do I see here? Oh, it's my RDP session. It says protocol RDP, and I don't like this session. Kill it.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, this session is gone.
That's awesome.
Can you have this type of access with the RD gateway or the VPN? I don't know about you, but no, you just cannot. Yes, there is a bit of session management in the RD gateway. So yes, and the RD gateway also have this option of going and killing the session.
Sure.
But you don't have MFA as easily as you can with Wayk Bastion.
That's really cool.
Gateway. And the RD gateway only works for RDP. The other thing people are not aware of is that you also need to authenticate against the RD gateway using deprecated protocols from Microsoft Postman using NTLM or Kerberos if you had the time set it up. But it's also considered a security threat to just expose it directly. So it's good, but honestly, maybe not that good. So we need better products. And I'm really happy to show this to you today, what we have managed to do with Wayk Bastion. So if we circle back to IT Help Ninja, what were their problems originally? They're an MSP. They've been using VPNs and RD gateways for remote access. But now they have 100 separate customers and 100 separate networks.
Sure.
How do they do that? Now we can actually do this with a single Wayk Bastion. And if you haven't seen why it's so different, the difference is with the Wayk agent. It is a reverse connection. There is no inbound connection required to come and connect to RDP. So we talk to the Wayk agent. Wayk agent is like, okay, let me make a rendezvous with you at the Devolutions gateway, and I trust the Wayk Bastion with this session, so I will let the connection come through, and then you can connect to it. So no VPN, no RD gateway. This is another problem that's with the RD gateway, is the RD gateway itself needs to be exposed to the internet or the external network, but it also needs direct access to the internal systems. The Devolutions gateway doesn't. It only needs to be accessed by both sides. So that heavily simplifies the deployment. You don't need to add firewall exceptions for many things. You only need to let traffic go out to a limited number of IP addresses or domains. Basically, just your Wayk Bastion and your Devolutions gateway, and it will work. Even if you move the computer around. If it's a laptop and it changes network, how do you do that with a VPN? How do you do that with an RDK? You simply cannot. The target system needs to be in fixed network location.
Sure.
But no longer with Wayk Bastion.
That's cool. You know, one thing that I've been noticed as this project has been evolving is that we are, and by the way, our teams have worked really hard. I was talking about some of your team members the other day about like the fact that as Wayk is progressing, we're trying to also, there's a major focus on user experience. Yeah. I know it's weird because as IT people, let's be honest, how many times have we used or created software that like, it works for me and it does what I need to do. Doesn't matter what it looks like. But the problem is, we're growing up in a generation now, especially some of I would say the younger generation, because we're getting old now. But sorry, Mark. But the younger generation, they're expecting things to be simple and easy. And by the way, it's also, let's be fair, IT professionals, we need things that are simple and easy as well, because I mean, we've gone through the days of doing things complicated, but who wants to do that? Now we have too much to do and too much to worry about. So they've really done a good job, and as I've been watching them to combine the security level with the productivity, because a lot of times those things, like high security, low productivity, are great productivity, but no security. And you found a balance, I think, and which is really interesting. And then also when we talk about productivity, also we're trying to use the tools that you already have. Yeah. And that is really, really cool. So I was impressed for me using it. I'm just being honest right now. So it's been scripted, but like when I was using it, I was like, wow, this makes sense to me. And I'm already a RDM user, but I like the simplicity behind it. So kudos to you on that. I'm just saying. So Wakey is happy on that. But anyway, so I just wanted to interject.
That's a good point. Like as IT professionals, you need things that you can actually use to solve your problems. And for good security to be implemented, it needs to be, well, implementable in a sense.
Sure.
That if it's too difficult or if it has too many requirements, what will likely happen is you will still rely on the non-secure version of the certain protocol to access the target.
Yeah.
And all you need is the weakest point in your system to get it, right? So in order to make good security, you need to make good security usable. Otherwise, you kind of failed at doing it. Yep. So this is really a lot of what drives the design of Wayk Bastion. We need it to be usable by you. Otherwise, if you don't deploy it and use it, might as well not use it at all. So.
Sure. And one of the natural tendencies as humans, let's be honest, is we're talking about security and the weakest link in the protocol on the system or whatever. But let's be honest, a lot of times it's just us. I'm lazy many times, and if there's an extra step that I have to do that my CISO says we need to do this, but it's not easy, I'm gonna find a way to circumnavigate it. And how do we get rid of the weakest link?
Human
right?
nature.
Human nature.
Even if you try just like push it down, it's like you need to do all of these extra steps every single time you need to access feature X. What happens is people kind of get bored and try to find non-legitimate ways around the problem.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you definitely want to keep people in the legitimate path to access resources.
So maybe we can say the magic behind it is the Wakey. I don't know, maybe not, but okay, that was a little cheesy. But what I'm saying is behind it, Wakey's taking care of those things for you. So as an admin, you set everything up and you put the environment how it fits you. But the whole point is it does like the we talk about it, but like it happens for you. It does it for you intuitively, so that you don't have to think about it, and then it just the security is intuitive. So that's really cool. Anyway,
still have like one very interesting feature I want to show today.
Sure.
For those that heard before, Wayk PowerShell. What is Wayk PowerShell?
Absolutely.
Maybe some of you heard that PowerShell is no longer a Windows thing. It's actually cross-platform now. It's also open source. If you didn't know, well, now you know.
Surprise.
So let me just show you. Let me connect using Wayk PowerShell to my certificate authority using Wayk Bastion. Why is it taking so long? Oh, that was because it was the Wayk client connection. Sorry, we'll use the right one. As you have the little blue box here.
Nice.
Okay, it's extremely small.
It's like it's like 2-point font right now, but
yeah, I don't know how to make it bigger. Sorry, but you see black box there. It's actually a partial session. Trust me on this.
That's awesome. That's great. It's no problem. It's no problem.
So you can actually see text. Ooh.
There you go. Yeah.
That's because of DPI handling or something. I can try it on a second one. We'll see. So let me explain a bit more about how this works. Like right now I'm connecting. I have this habit of clicking the little wiki, so I keep making Wayk client connections. Sorry.
We like the wiki. That's why we keep clicking it. No problem.
So, because Wayk is now a multi-protocol thing, so it's kind of difficult sometimes to keep track of it.
No problem.
So in the same way that we can connect to all the machines that are managed by Wayk Bastion, you can also connect using Wayk RDP. You can connect to Windows, macOS, and Linux.
That's neat.
How does this work? Because it's not using WinRM, it's not using SSH, because some of you may know that PowerShell 7 introduced SSH as a remoting transport. What we do, in fact, is we completely replace the SSH layer.
Oh no, you didn't.
Replace it by something much better.
Okay.
So we authenticate out of band, and we end up with a fully operational PowerShell 7 session to the target system that goes through Devolutions gateway.
Yeah.
It actually does it in rendezvous mode again. But you can access all of your systems. And this is something which, if you look at the traditional ways to do it, is normally only done using a VPN and then you open it. If you're an advanced power user, you may know the difference between just having a black box which you can type text in and a PowerShell remoting session. Because a PowerShell remoting session is actually an object which you can use to call invoke command. And they say, run this command into this PowerShell session. And then whatever the remote session is, it will just do it and return the result. This is what this is. You have a full PowerShell remoting session. If you do it outside of RDM, there are ways you can actually grab this PowerShell session object and integrate it in different ways for power users, of course. But what this means is you can access all of your system using Wayk Remote Desktop to get the desktop. It will work on Windows, macOS, and Linux. But if you need unattended management, well, PowerShell 7 is the Wayk unattended protocol for unattended management. So you do not need to go and disturb the user that's currently at the computer. You can just go in the background and make these connections happen.
Cool.
And just like the rest, you can, maybe I should have left the connections open. It's still there. Let me kill that session. You can kill these sessions. The only difference is for PowerShell remoting session, it only notices that it's disconnected once you type something. So it's disconnected and a red warning.
It makes sense. Yep.
Yes. So are we at the point where we should start thinking questions? I still have a few more things left.
Yeah, right now, I'll be honest, like Frank is, or Francois is, we call him Frank because in his English, but in French it's Francois. So if you want to learn some French, that's what we call him. But so Francois is actually answering almost, I think, all the questions right now. So
let me take the time to explain a bit more about Devolutions Gateway. I mentioned that there's the Wayk Bastion, there's the Devolutions Gateway. In this simple deployment scenario, we just launch a small Devolutions Gateway side by side with Wayk Bastion. You can also deploy it separately. So if you need high availability and scalability, the component which you can actually scale is the Devolutions Gateway. Why? Because relaying a lot of protocols is what costs more.
Sure.
So you can install as many Devolutions Gateway instances as needed, but you still keep just one Wayk Bastion. In this case here, I have a separate VM called IT Help Gateway that hosts both the remote desktop gateway for the demo purposes and the Devolutions Gateway. It's actually just a system service that runs in there. There we go. The only thing you need to do to deploy it is, you need to install it, of course. You need to give, it needs HTTPS for WebSocket traffic and HTTP traffic. And on the gateway side, you need to configure it with the public key of Wayk Bastion, because we don't want the Devolutions Gateway to relay any connection. It only wants to relay connections that are pre-authorized by Wayk Bastion. So here you see, well, it's fun. It's just an executable. It's running as a system service. This is pretty much it. And if I go into the configuration files, wasn't the right place. I forgot where it was, but it's in a different place. If you have any questions on how to set these things up and how to set these things up automatically, this entire lab environment has been scripted using PowerShell.
Okay.
So I have like all the commands you can actually use to build your own scripts for installing all of the dependencies.
Sure.
But also how to use the PowerShell module to manage Devolutions Gateway.
Very cool.
So you can just call the commands like import this key and set this is the external host name for the Devolutions Gateway and things like that. You can Devolutions Gateway is multi-protocol. So you can some connections require WebSockets. Some connections will be done over TCP. TCP adapted for RDP. But the interesting thing is you can choose how many listeners you have in there. So if you want to optimize for success, you can add a couple more listeners in there with different ports that may or may not be blocked depending on the firewall configuration. It makes me think of something important to explain. The Wayk RDP connection connects from a standard RDP client directly to the Devolutions Gateway. And then the reverse connection is done with the Wayk agent. What this means is, unlike using something like SSH and SSH tunnel, you do not require a local host proxy. This heavily simplifies how you connect to things. You don't need to install another program on the local machine for the Wayk RDP connection.
Oh, cool. Very neat. There's several questions that came up I saw in the chat. Was questions concerning deployment and setup. Can you give a kind of like a little overview or?
Yes. I didn't spend much time explaining how to deploy it because I have like a pre-configured environment to show you because it's the boring part. How do you deploy these things? So my goal here is that you realize the value and then spend time deploying it.
Perfect.
You have two deployment options right now. It's Windows Server 2019. If you need another version of Windows Server, Windows Server 2022 is coming up, so we'll also add support for it, or Linux. And the way it works, well, we recommend Ubuntu Linux, but Red Hat is fine as well. It's all using containers. So we have Windows and Linux containers. And in the Windows world, if you want Windows Server, you can only use Windows containers, even if you know about these things that exist on Windows 10. It's not officially supported from Windows Server. So we provide both Windows Server containers and Linux containers. And the way to manage it is basically using a PowerShell module to set up all of the configuration parameters. So the requirements would be like one of these two hosts. You need a certificate with proper validation for HTTPS. If you have your own custom CA, this is deployed using a custom CA. It needs to be trusted on all of the endpoints that would connect to it. But if you already have the means of doing that, then by all means do it. We will look and trust the custom certificates in the different systems. So on Windows, macOS, and Linux, we'll look for these. So if you can have that, like external access using HTTPS, WebSocket traffic enabled, do not forget to enable these because oftentimes like Nginx or HAProxy or even IIS, you need to enable more features because the traffic gets blocked. The WebSocket traffic is used for the web client, but it's also used by the Wayk agent when connecting back to the Wayk Bastion. So when the Wayk agents, they all phone home, as we say, to Wayk Bastion. So whenever there is a call to be made, it just goes through it. So you need to make sure that these all work. Other than that, it should work all fine. Of course, if you want to have the Devolutions Gateway, well, you need the Devolutions Gateway, but for the Devolutions Gateway, it's pretty much the same requirements. You need to make sure that you have at least one TCP port open for the RDP connections. You need to have HTTPS for certain calls not being made to it. And you also need to make sure that WebSocket traffic goes correctly to it without being blocked.
Cool.
So in this screen here, if you can show it again.
Absolutely.
It's gone. I don't know what happened.
Oh, I pressed it. I'm sorry.
I pressed it.
My fault.
Okay. So here I made a new DNS entry on the test network. It's pointing to IT Help Gateway, just give it a better name. And I just exposed it using HTTPS certificate and Ethernet port just to avoid the conflict with the RD gateway.
Yep.
But all you need to do is you need to point it to where you deployed it. And on the Devolutions Gateway side, you need to configure it with the public key for Wayk Bastion, such that Devolutions Gateway trusts the Wayk Bastion, and then Wayk Bastion knows like where to forward connections that it knows will be authorized by what it signs.
Yeah.
I did not mention the licensing, so maybe we have a bit more time for that. If you look carefully here, well, at the bottom or in the lab environment, you will get, we've added a special exception for the lab environment, so it's pretty much like free for all.
Yeah.
It's the same as a site license without having a site license there. But normally, well, unless you want to go straight to a site license and have unlimited users, what happens is you will buy a license which has a count in it, and then you will need to just go and add the license, and then go in the users and assign a license manually. So you can go and manage license. Here there are no license, but you would just like select the one, and then would just like decrement the count on the license. So if you have 10 as your license count, you can assign it to 10 users. When you use an unlimited user license, like a site license, well, we just skip that step. So you don't have to manually do the license assignment.
All right, cool. We've got a few more minutes left.
Yes.
And like I said, we're going to do the drawing at the end here. But a couple other questions that were, I've noticed, was questions concerning permissions and a little bit, how do we restrict access to the different areas, you know, how do we deal with that?
Let me cover it. Here in the interface, we have like all the users.
Okay.
Traditionally, you would go here and go manage roles, and we'll assign roles to different users. This is going to be changed to this interface, which is on the groups right here. We've heavily simplified it. So I made a group of technicians. And here, just one member called technician. So very original.
Yeah, perfect.
And then I have role assignment. What is role assignment? I spoke earlier that it was very similar to Azure RBAC. It's the same system. So here I have my technician role assigned to the subscription for this group. So any user member of this group will have the permissions that are contained within the technician built-in role. Now, we've made this technician built-in role because we have a couple of other ones. But technician is simply, you can see the list of sessions and you can attempt connecting to different systems. Other things like managing the account provider, global system configuration, machine registration even, are in other roles.
Okay.
So you, for now, just go into Wayk admin for these administrative tasks. We'll be adding more and more roles later on. If I just go and click plus, you can see that I can assign, like for instance, machine contributor, machine login. Machine computer can edit the machine, so certain permissions. Machine user login is basically, you can attempt connecting to a machine, otherwise you get it denied. Or a technician, which is what most people will need anyway. So we're working on going towards this type of interface where it's a role assignment. So to understand it fully, you have like a user or a group of users. You combine that with a role definition, like technician. What it can do is a list of permission, and a scope. And the scope is, I've put it on a subscription level. So everything under subscription, you have this role, but I could go and assign it to a single tenant. So I have a new employee and I want to train him as like, you're only going to go and help Banana Phone. Yeah. Well, I could make a special role assignment on Banana Phone specifically.
Sure.
So this is where it's headed.
Okay, no, that makes perfect sense. A couple minutes here. Did you want to cover a little bit about what's coming up down the road?
Yes, certainly. So there are a few things a lot of things that we're working on. You can see here, we've put the focus on RDM. We've heard you, customers. A lot of people have been asking, what about RDM integration? We want to use it within RDM. Well, here it is within RDM. We're going to push it a little bit further. So here, these are all entries I actually scripted using the RDM PowerShell module to create all of these entries. But some customers may prefer to have a synchronizer, such that all of the machines managed by Wayk Bastion, you want just go and synchronize the entire list and then create your entries. So we'll be working on making a Wayk Bastion synchronizer. So you can just have them in there. We also have a Wayk Bastion data source, which is there, but it does not yet support storing credential entries.
Okay.
So I didn't really show it because of that, but I would consider it done once we have the credential entries supported in it. Okay. So if you do not have an existing data source and you come like into Wayk Bastion having no existing other products, well, maybe the Wayk Bastion data source just makes sense for you. But what sense. We've had as feedback from customers is like, we already have a data source. What we want to add on top of it is a remote access management solution. Do not come and bring me another like data source.
Sure.
So we're listening to both sides.
Yeah, but that's good.
And the other things we're also working on is the Devolutions gateway is a multi-protocol gateway, but we're also working on making proxy-based session recording.
Oh.
So this means when you connect using Wayk Remote Desktop,
Yeah.
you could have a session recording.
Okay.
We currently have that client side. So inside RDM, you can go and actually enable session recording. You have like video files and directly on the computer you're using to make the connection.
Yeah.
But it's even more interesting when you push it at the proxy level, because then you have videos that are being stored from the gateway. So if the technician comes in and steals stuff and goes away with it, well, maybe they didn't get access to the Devolutions gateway to clean up and hide his tracks.
Yeah.
So there are many ways that people won't be able to cover their tracks, like by deleting stuff, because they won't have access to delete these kinds of things. So we start with the Wayk Remote Desktop protocol. We look into recording other protocols after that.
Okay.
There's also more protocols coming down the line. So I mentioned Apple Remote Desktop earlier. Well, we want to leverage the existing protocol. So you can choose what already works, and you can just add Wayk Bastion as a way to access using these protocols. But we also want to add Apple Remote Desktop. So we just done it exactly the same way we do for Wayk RDP. Great. We also want to make it possible to do Wayk SSH and then generic TCP tunneling. So if you have other protocols, well, you could add like tunneling for TCP for whatever protocol you need, and it will work through Wayk Bastion.
So is there anything else you wanted to say, Marc?
No, just go and have fun. Try it out.
Absolutely. It'll be great. So thank you so much. And we really appreciate you joining us for our webinar today. We're heading on over to this session. Thanks again.